Hello and welcome to Dog Show Mentors interview with Sheila Allen. Welcome, Sheila.
Hi there.
You are a CBD expert, and I'm going to ask you for your credentials in terms of, I know you've had a business for a couple of years, but before we do that, I just want to introduce you as a dog person, the longtime dog person that you are. And you're an active club member. What clubs are you a member of?
I'm a member of Whidbey Island Kennel Club. I am currently the president thereof. I am a member of the Harrier Club of America. I was a founder of the All Terrier Club of Western Washington. I also helped found the Snow King Dog Agility Club, and I was a member of Washington State Obedience Club for over 20 years.
Okay, so you've seen it from all sides.
I have.
And you also judge juniors.
I do. One of my favorite things.
Awesome. And as if that isn't enough, you teach handling classes.
Yes, once a week.
All right.
It's my favorite night of the week.
And you are up by Seattle.
I am north of Seattle, but yes.
Okay. And you're a breeder. You breed smooth fox terriers and harriers.
I do.
All right. So let's just dive right in. And before we talk about what CBD means, which I'm very curious about myself, would you talk a little bit about your pharmacy and the pharmacy that we see behind you?
Yeah, I own a health and wellness store in Snohomish called The Health Spot. I purchased it not quite 3.5 years ago, and immediately dove into going to education on different products for health and wellness. I've always been a fan of alternative medicine, and I have since brought in a very limited but very particular section for pets as well, not stuff you necessarily find at Petco. And we try to keep educated. And I brought CBD into my store over 3 years ago. We were the first place in Snohomish to have it at all, and we still have the largest selection for people and pets. Because the education I got at that very first workshop made me a real believer that this was something that everybody needed to learn about and have available. So that's sort of where I come from. I've tried to get as much education on the product, on what it does and what it doesn't do, and educate my staff as possible.
All right. Well, so what does CBD mean, Sheila?
All CBD really stands for is cannabidiol. It's a phytocannabinoid. Mostly comes from agricultural or industrial hemp, which is directly related to marijuana. However, it grows differently. The recent farm bill that was passed, they will be growing great quantities of it in Kentucky and those states now that it's legal to grow it again. Here, most of the good companies, until that has happened, or the large companies, have purchased their agricultural hemp from Europe because there have not been good supplies here. So it's very exciting that they have discovered that the South is actually the best place to grow it. And that's where it actually came from originally. I mean, the Constitution is printed on it, on hemp paper, and they used to grow it, and now they can grow it again.
So is hemp the same thing as what we loosely term marijuana?
They are related, and they have basically the same technical name. However, one is grown outdoors and very tall, and actually the entire part of the plant is used. They call it the aerial parts. They use the leaves, the buds, everything. Whereas marijuana, they of course just use the buds, and it's all grown indoors under lights and strict conditions, and it doesn't get as tall. It's a totally different plant, and agricultural hemp does not have it's been hybridized or developed not to have a large THC component, which marijuana has.
All right. So
that's basically the difference.
So can you talk about what kind of things CBD is used for?
Well, yeah,
particularly as it relates to dogs.
Yeah. First, I want to say it wasn't even until 1990 that science discovered the endocannabinoid system in humans and subsequently in animals that has proven to be a very important part of our makeup and our biological system. But it's really fairly recent. 1990 is not that long ago. And there's CBD1 and there's CB1 and CB2 receptors. Your CB1 receptors are mostly in your central nervous system and your brain. And the CB2 receptors densely populate the immune system and control inflammation and fighting off pathogens. There and the other parts of your body. And so our bodies actually produce what is called endocannabinoid. What CBD is a phytocannabinoid that gets in our bodies and stimulates our own receptors to produce endocannabinoid. Because there's been some sort of breakdown somewhere in our system. We don't have homeostasis or toxicity or a variety of things that then start closing down those receptors, and our bodies quit producing the cannabinoid we need. So it can be used for many, many different things. The one doctor who is actually involved with he's the doctor for the AKC.
Dr. Jerry Klein.
Yes, he uses it. He says that because of its anti-inflammatory properties, it has cardiac benefits, anti-nausea effects, appetite stimulation, anti-anxiety impact, and possible anti-cancer benefits, although there's no data yet to really support that fully. However, in people, there are many, many cases where there have been results from that. So that's why they suspect it could have the same effect in animals. So those are just some of them. Anecdotally, my experience with people is it's great for anxiety issues, stress, and mostly for pain and arthritic conditions. People have had the best luck with those items. And of course, there are studies going on with dogs currently going on with it for epilepsy. And they're studying that for non-responsive stuff, and it's being studied in Colorado at the university there, the vet school.
Okay, great. I know a lot of people at dog shows use CBD for their pain and arthritis, their knees, their hips, their wrist.
Yep.
And they use it in their dogs for anxiety, ring anxiety. And we've got a few questions that some of the members have posed. And which one would you like to?
Well, I think one of them was about dosing.
Yeah.
Dosing is something I'm really crazy about here at our store too, because you dose people the same way. You start slow, you build up. It's suggested to start very slow and monitor the animal. You know, CBD is one of those things because it is actually stimulating a receptor in the animal. It's not like an NSAID or something that gives you an instant relief. Some people and some animals have instant relief. You see the results like within 20 minutes. Some people and some animals take at least 2 weeks to really determine its efficacy and how much is going to be effective. So there's a couple of different doctors. One from the general rule is they suggest 1 milligram for 10 pounds to start. And you keep those doses up for 2 to 5 days. And then you can do that up to twice a day. And then but usually you would give the 1 milligram a day for 2-3 days. And then you might boost it to 2 milligrams and monitor your animal. And then you might add in another 2 days a morning dose or an evening, a second dose during the day. And you monitor how much you're giving and you monitor the results of your animal. Liquids, the tinctures, work faster. Excuse me. I'm going to cough. Tinctures and liquids work faster. Capsules and other forms often work longer. So it just depends.
I had a person at a dog show say to me after she came out of the ring and she didn't win, she said, I gave my bitch a CBD capsule and I think it was too much or something like that.
It can actually in animals, because of its stress relief, it can actually make them a little sluggish and a little tired, a little sleepy. Yeah. So one wouldn't want to overdo it.
It's not the kind of thing that you walk up to the concession at a dog show an hour before you're going in the ring and say, my dog has anxiety, what do you have? And they say, well, here's some CBD. And then you walk over and give it to them without any preparation.
Exactly. Yeah.
You want to start way ahead at home when you can be there looking at your animal, making sure that there are no adverse reactions.
Oh yeah, and everybody and every animal reacts a little differently.
And make sure that they don't get too sleepy and that it has having an effect, right?
Exactly. I actually use it coupled with aromatherapy.
Oh, well, there'll be some members who are interested in how you do that.
Yeah, I do some aromatherapy, anti-stress. If an animal is that way, we've got a little concoction we put together, and it releases that tension. Anecdotally, though, I have seen lots of results from stress and anxiety, but the results have been like things like fireworks and stuff like that. Sometimes the anxiety animals feel at dog shows isn't the same kind of anxiousness.
As same kind of anxiousness as they get from fireworks.
From fireworks, lightning, the things that truly make fear, and send a dog quivering under the bed. You don't see dogs like that at dog shows. They're either hyper or they're tentative, they're fearful, and sometimes that's just, they need a little training.
Yeah. Yeah. And exposure and experience.
Yeah. And so the people that, now if a dog has had a horrible, a bad experience, a dog ran up on them, something, or a very loud noise that startled them while in the ring, something like CBD or something can be helpful, but you give it to them prior. It has a long enough effect that you don't give it 10 minutes before you go in the ring and think it's going to do something. Give it an hour ahead and let the dog settle in.
So when people take CBD, do they have to worry about getting high?
The stuff stores like Mind Cell and the stuff for dogs, they have actually studied, and there can be a toxicity with high volumes of THC in animals. So the stuff we sell, the legal definition of zero for THC, which agricultural hemp has, is 0.03. It's pretty much nothing. However, it is enough that if given regularly, and in people, if you had to have a pee test for a job, it could show up possibly in urine. It will not show up in blood. So that THC can have some residual effects. They claim there has to be a small amount of THC to make the cannabinol really effective and stimulated in the body. However, the stuff people get at a CBD, a pot shop, if you have legal pot in your state, a lot of that is going to have a higher quantity of THC, and you would be very well advised probably not to use it on your pet.
Okay, good.
So
that's good to know.
Yeah, it's just, there can be toxicity situations, and again, as part of monitoring the dog, and you do not want your dog high or stoned or that kind of stuff.
And you don't want to be either.
No.
At least not at a dog show.
No.
And so there's always questions about regulations and formulations and concentrations. Can you talk a little bit about, like, if people buy it, for example, at a dog show,
Right.
How can they compare one name product to another brand?
Well, hopefully they're reputable companies that do third-party independent testing, and you can actually ask for and see the testing reports from those specific batches of product. One company I get product from comes with a fully written report of how much CBDA, how much CBN, CBG, the full spectrum, what the terpene level is, everything that's a constituent part of that product should be on a report.
So we don't even get that from our vitamins or our herbal supplements.
Actually, good companies you can get that from, but yes. But good CBD companies, if you're getting a good quality product, there should be independent third-party testing regularly. The FDA, of course, doesn't do testing on it and regulate it at this point. There's some,
Well, it's still illegal on the federal level.
Well, and you cannot buy it in Idaho. You cannot get CBD in Idaho. It's illegal. Okay. So,
and how many states is CBD legal in?
Actually, the majority of them, there's probably maybe 5 where you can't. And I honestly don't know. There's a map available that shows that. I looked at it today, but I couldn't recite them all. I do know Idaho is one of them.
Well, that is,
So,
it's fascinating to think that recently on the news, 2 ladies were arrested for having CBD going through TSA.
right, because it's illegal it's not, I don't think the TSA people know the difference between an agricultural hemp-based CBD and marijuana-based CBD. And of course, the FDA is still coming out and saying, let's see, the legal status for cannabis in animals, for instance, right now, FDA's announced it's a drug. So, and in California, they're telling California, as of February of this year, the medical board has no official policy on hemp products. They continue to tell veterinarians they are barred from discussing, recommending, or selling them.
Oh.
So they're still doing so much study. The one veterinarian, there's a Dr. Stacy McGrath, who's a veterinarian at Colorado State. She's also the professor of neurology there. And she's doing 2 clinical-based trials on epilepsy and osteoarthritis with CBD. And then Cornell University has done studies, and some other colleges, but it's still in such a early state that there's really not a lot of definite results out there. I mean, Dr. McGrath's has not been published yet. She says the studies are, they're saying it's great, but there's no larger studies being done, and she isn't saying anything because the notes have not been published.
So we don't even know if there are any risks at this point. We only know anecdotally there's no risks.
Well, there is no, the information I have, it's not, CBD in itself, cannabinol, is not toxic to animals at all. You cannot really overdose. You cannot overdose a person, and it will never kill you, or will it kill a dog? The THC component could create a problem if there was high levels of THC. But as far as cannabinol itself, that part is known, that there is no, it's not toxic, and it's not going to harm your dog. I think the only side effects they have found are things like dry mouth. Your dog might appear a little thirsty. The lethargy or sleepiness, if they have too much. Those are basically the only real side effects that anybody has so far noticed. So from that standpoint, that's not bad.
I would say so. And so do people give edibles to dogs? What are now, gummy bears and those kind of things that people can buy for people?
I would never give a person edible, because an edible for people, if they have purchased it at a pot shop, is going to have THC in it. I actually sell a line, actually more than one line, of edibles for dogs that have CBD in them. In fact, 2 of my old Harriers both get CBD cookies twice a day. Because one of them she's 12 years old, she has a disc problem. rather than having her on a prescription anti-inflammatory, which can cause liver and kidney damage, I have chosen to abstain from that until absolutely necessary. And she is doing beautifully on CBD. And I fear it's not going to hurt her. The only other side effect is lowered blood pressure, possibly. It can cause a temporary drop in blood pressure, but it's really little. So it might cause an animal to be a little lightheaded or something. So you do have, that's why it's important to monitor your dog.
So there was a question here, are they more effective if a loading dose is used, or are they as effective used solely on the day needed for anxiety?
It's something that, because of the fact that to really determine the dose your needs, you need to sort of go through a 2-week titration period to find out how your dog is reacting, how he's responding, is it helping, and what the dosage level is. And then if it's a dog with high anxiety all the time, you're going to want to have them on a nice steady level dose of it. It's not something, because you don't know if it's going to work on the animal instantly or even that day. It can take a couple of weeks to even determine if its efficacy in that animal. So it's not something that's just an instant fix.
Yeah, and maybe I don't know the definition of a loading dose, but
to me, a loading dose is a really massive dose first. Yeah. And CBD, they recommend less is more. Start small, build up.
Yeah, good, okay.
There are cancer patients that take over 100 milligrams of the stuff a day to help with their symptoms and possibly even shrink tumors, depending on the type or whatever. But they have worked up to that. They have determined that that is the dose they need for what they're experiencing. So I would personally never recommend a massive dose. People did use it very successfully on things like the 4th of July instead of having to rely on acepromazine or things like that. We had a lot of customers coming in, and they will be again, for CBD tincture because it actually helped their dog.
Well, that's a good thing to know.
I truly think the stress animals experience at dog shows is a bit different than that profound panic dogs experience with 4th of July or thunder, dogs that have response to storms and thunder and lightning. I think those dogs actually sense those things. They feel them. 4th of July, they smell it. I mean, there is so much involved in those things. It's not just, I'm anxious. Now, dogs that have separation anxiety and are ripping up your house, that's something different.
Okay. And CBD can help that?
Most probably. You know, again, one of the side effects is maybe a little lethargy and sleepiness, which if your dog is feeling destructive might be good. But again, I wouldn't give it to the dog. You know, it's build it up and find out at what level it starts to modulate their behavior. And there's no guarantees.
What if people are growing, today people grow their own, you can have, I think in Washington, up to 3 plants to grow your own. If you grew your own CBD, would that be something that could be safe for your dog, or do you think that people should still buy it at the store?
I think if you grow it yourself, what you've got is the whole plant complex, or if you're growing it yourself, you've got the buds, the flowering part.
Mm-hmm.
And then how do you deliver it? CBD products have either been turned into a tincture, it's processed with CO2. In the raw state, it's just simply CO2 processed. After that, they apply heat and extract it down even further. So if you were growing your own and your dog got into your marijuana plant, it's no different than you rolling a joint or having an edible.
Okay.
So you're not making your own cannabinol. And that's it. It's a processed product, extracting it from the full plant complex aerial parts, and then it is processed down with CO2 extraction and or heat. And then it's usually put, if it's in a tincture form, it's used with coconut oil, olive oil, those kinds of things to make it palatable and to make it so that it's, a delivery system.
Well, that makes a lot of sense when you say it like that, about why it's a different product.
It's a different product from a different plant, pretty much.
Not just, I don't want to spend X dollars a month on buying CBD for my dogs when I can just grow my own. That's why you want to get it and buy a brand that contains that's certified.
Right. And you know what the THC level is, and if you're getting full spectrum, there's two kinds of there's CBD isolate, where they have taken the cannabinoid, the plant, the hemp plant, and they have just extracted it down and taken everything else out. They've taken the CBG, the CBN, the terpenes, the other phytocannabinoid pieces out of it, and it's just CBD isolate.
Okay.
Isolate is not generally as effective as whole complex, because you want that full spectrum, because CBG, for instance, in people, they are doing research, CBG appears to be helping autism.
Oh, wow.
Autistic people. So there's all these different components. And of course, the people with epilepsy and that have good luck with it, yeah, they're taking large quantities, but they're getting that full complex, because I think it's the CBN portion that's good for that. So
there's a lot to this, isn't there?
It isn't just CBD. The CBD is just the cannabinol portion of a whole plant that has incredible health benefits, basically. I take a raw formula capsule every day myself, because the raw formulas don't cross the blood-brain barrier. And those are really good for the CBD2 receptors in the rest of our body. So they're the anti-inflammatory and all of that.
Has any research been done on neurological disorders other than epilepsy, like MS?
I know that it's good for, I don't know about MS. I know a lot of people use it for fibromyalgia and some of those things.
Okay.
But, those haven't, of course, we don't know about dogs and those disorders, so.
Right.
Yeah.
So this whole thing about having a little bit of THC making CBD more effective may be true in humans, but it might not be the best thing for dogs.
Exactly. Right? Just because of the possible toxicity. There is studies. I mean, there's things that talk about the different levels that of CB, the different There's one called Project CBD for Pets in Pain, and they have like high CBD hemp and ratios for, and then an even ratio with a little more THC, and then high THC ratios. But they're for cancer and nerve pain and osteoarthritis, and you need to really be working with a vet to be given that because of the limiting factor with the THC in dogs.
Okay. So that's really an important point here for people who are considering this is don't go off on your own and give your dog THC or CBD with THC unless you're working with a veterinarian.
Absolutely. And a lot of veterinarians really don't know, and there's sites of research for them, but this one is called Project CBD, and it's a whole thing on CBD and cannabis for pets in pain. And there are sites where you can work with, that your veterinarian can contact them so that they can get it from veterinarians.
Fabulous. Okay.
Because it's like they call it an entourage effect, and what it does is it's the synergistic benefit of the whole plant complex related to the quantity and distribution of the minor cannabinoids, which we were talking about, the CBN, the CBG,
right,
the terpenes and flavonoids. And then you also have to consider what other medications an animal may be on, just like people. If you're taking medications, is it going to interact with that in some bad way? So do care and caution.
So the long and short of it is that it's not legal in every single state, but it is legal in all but 5 states.
So pretty much, yeah.
The federal government doesn't regulate it other than to say it's illegal. So that the FDA has no management of,
other than saying it's a drug.
right.
They did that right after the Farm Bill got passed, where we can now grow it in this country. The FDA turned around and decided to they've always called it a class 1 drug, and now they've classified it as a drug. So that's kind of
sure, yeah, what that means.
Well, that's because the FDA's in cahoots with Big Pharma.
Yes, okay. That I do understand.
Yes.
So we talked about it being great for all different aspects of pain, emotional anxiety,
yep.
Epilepsy, possibly yep. Epilepsy, and studies are being done now, particularly in Colorado State and in Cornell in New York.
Yep.
And but the better companies do provide data on every batch they send out to you as a reseller. Is that right? The better company.
They either send it with the batch, or I can go online with the batch number and get the report, or if I request it, they send it.
Okay. So do you have any brands that you trust more than others that you feel comfortable sharing for the purposes of our...
Well, in pets, we have had Cana Companion, which is actually a Washington company. Super Snouts makes a line of stuff that's quite interesting, and they have some soft chew treats. I sell a great amount of the Pet Relief brand, which is highly studied. They make the edibles I feed my dogs. They make hard, crunchy biscuits. They make soft chews. They make tinctures, capsules, ointments, because you can use it topically as well for skin issues. Those kinds of things. I use another brand, Tuscan, which is a pure one. And many companies are getting into making it for pets as well as people. But I like the Pet Relief and Cana Companion because they're strictly making it for your animal.
Okay.
And dogs, you can give it to twice a day. Cats, only once.
Yeah.
Cats metabolize it totally differently. And you could cause a cat a great deal of problems. So if you have both critters in your household, which many of us do, one needs to be careful.
Okay.
Especially if you have edibles abound that are quite tasty.
Good point. That's really important, folks. And you did say that before, that cats do metabolize it very differently than dogs.
Oh, very differently.
So do you have any other final comments, Sheila, that you'd like to share with the group?
You know, the only thing I would like to share is that some of the anecdotal stuff I personally have seen here in the store is what really brings it home to me, that the stuff adds quality to the life of an animal that needs it. We had a gal come in. She's been a regular customer for years with a big old dog. She actually had an appointment to have him euthanized because his feet were buckled over. They had to have a sling to get him up and down the stairs. If he got down, he couldn't get up. And his life was pretty miserable. She came into the store and we got her on some CBD. I did not even have CBD for pets at that time. We gave her some human CBD. And the dog lived another 9 months. Within 2 weeks, he was not buckled over. He was going up and down the stairs on his own. He had 9 more months of quality life. It was little things like that that made me realize this stuff has some value for our canine family. And I went and loaded up.
You know, when you put it like that, Sheila, that brings the compassion piece to this whole conversation and the whole questions that we all have about, is it safe and is it regulated, and all the questions about the / legal moral consequences. But really, in the end, particularly if you have a dog that is older, not doing well, the compassion piece is huge.
Well, yeah, and yeah. She actually took the dog to the vet the day of the scheduled appointment, and the dog walked in on his own, and the vet was so thrilled. He said, "You can even double the dose." That I had suggested. You know, he said, "Give him more." Because I truly believe less is more and start slow.
Okay.
But and people is the same way. People come in and they think they want, you know, the most bang for the buck, you know, like you said, you know, a super load kind of thing. And that's not the way the stuff works. So you just have to realize you're stimulating your own system to create what it needs to do. You're putting your body in homeostasis.
Well, that I could think that could definitely have some benefits.
Yep.
Benefits. And I'm so glad that you agreed to do this, Sheila, and give members some information that they've been asking for quite a while. And they go to dog shows and talk to the people there, but I personally have known you for long enough to know that you have a lot of history and experience and have done your own research. And I'm happy to have you with us, and so people can learn more about it.
Well, I think it's a really valuable thing to have in your toolbox. You just don't expect instant gratification.
Great, thank you.
You don't take it yourself and say, oh, my aches and pains are going to go away. It doesn't work that way. So that's kind of the way people need to realize how it works. And that's probably the hardest part, because everybody's talking CBD, CBD. It's this great stuff. And yes, it is. But it's not like taking an over-the-counter pain pill. It don't work that way. So
yeah, it takes some time and some effort, and
yeah,
and gauging what the right amount is for that particular animal.
Exactly. So start no more than 1 milligram per 10 pounds and watch your dog, and increase gradually over a couple of weeks and figure out what it needs.
So may I ask you, what is the name of your store, Sheila?
It's called the Health Spot. We are in Snohomish, Washington.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Sheila, for being here. And
well, thanks for having me.
I learned a lot here, so thank you so much, because I hear it all at the dog shows, and I frankly was curious too.
Yep. Well, we get people in the door of the store every day asking about questions for both people and pets on a regular basis, because it's the hot topic.
Yes, so it is.
It is.
Well, I'm glad that there's something behind that hot topic, that it really does have value.
Yes, it does.
Thank you so much, Sheila.
All right. Thank you. All right.
Bye for now.
Bye.
See you at the shows.
All right.